Iron Monkey presents the Lazaretto Letters, a found collection of unmailed, handwritten letters from 1922. Episode 6, Lonely. Today's letters are from Eleanor Whitcomb, Westford, Massachusetts, addressed to James Whitcomb, Lazaretto Island, stamped, sealed, and postmarked. Letter 1, Thursday, May 25th, 1922. My dear James, I pray you are doing well at the Lazaretto. I do hope you have already received the box of treats I sent you last week. I received your much-needed letter. I read it at least a dozen times. I'm glad they're treating you well, but I wish I could visit. I'm just so darn lonely without you. Ever since your retirement, I'd grown so used to seeing your smiling face about the house. I'm just beside myself. I have been trying to keep myself busy to pass the time. Our home has never been so clean, though it makes it feel even emptier. Missing you dearly. Ella. Letter 2, Friday, May 26th, 1922. Dear James, no letter from you today. I understand the delays with fumigation and all, but I really could have used a bit of cheer. How wonderful it will be when you return. Every once in a while, I hear you calling my name. This morning I was making tea, and I heard it again. This time I answered. It just seems so natural. Not sure if it's wishful thinking, but I know I heard it. It wasn't my imagination. It rained and rained last night for what seemed like hours. A loud crack of thunder woke me up. I got up and looked out the window as the rain began to ease, but lightning still flashed off in the distance. The field lit up with a silent bolt, and I could have sworn I saw you out in the field. I waited for the next, but there was no one there. Just more wishful thinking, I guess. This morning, I inspected the house inside and out. Luckily, there are no new leaks, but we did manage to lose a shutter. It ended up in the garden, if you can believe it. I propped it up against the wall. I'm sure you can't wait to return to more chores. Don't worry, I'll pamper you when you get home and won't pester you. At least for a short time. As always, Ella. Letter 3, Saturday, May 27th, 1922. Dear James, I just want you to know you're sorely missed. All my recipes are for 2, so I continue to prepare them that way. I even continue to set a table for 2 and even hold small conversations, like you're still here. I know it's unlikely, but I fantasize about a surprise return. I dream you'll open the front door and be greeted with the smell of fresh bread and the outstretched arms of your loving wife. After a long and loving embrace, I'll walk you to the table and sit you down in your chair in front of your setting that's already there awaiting you. I'll dish out a warm home-cooked supper that I prepared just for the 2 of us. You'll say grace, and I'll be more thankful than I can ever recall. We won't talk much because I know you'll be too busy enjoying my cooking. I'll eat slowly and just watch you with a big smile on my face. Just the thought fills me with warmth as I write this. After supper, we'll sit out on the porch for a nice chat. I'll fetch your pouch and matches so you can enjoy your pipe. We'll enjoy some fresh cider as the setting sun warms our faces. We'll listen to the songs of frogs and cicadas while you tell me about your time on the island, good and bad. You'll be happy to know I've been keeping up with the chores. The porch is swept and the rugs are shaken daily. For the first time ever, all of your clothes are mended. I try to keep busy as I miss you most in the quiet times. I'm running out of things to keep my mind off my loneliness. The truth is, even my daily rituals feel hollow now. They're just empty gestures in this unchanging house. This afternoon, I sat on the porch reading, but mostly looking up and listening for the postman. After what seemed like an eternity, I saw his dust trail before I heard the motor and walked down to the end of the lane to greet him. He told me there was nothing from you without even looking. I offered him a glass of lemonade, which he drank down quickly, thanked me kindly, and went on his way. I was hoping for some small talk or gossip, but he had little to say today. He's sweet, but not much of a chatterbox. Unfortunately, the postman is one of the few people I speak with these days. Please write soon. Missing you dearly, Ella. Letter 4, Sunday, May 28th, 1922. My sweet James, in my cleaning frenzy, I came upon a forgotten and unfinished quilt I started several years ago. I decided it was time to finish the quilt and to finally face Jimmy's war trunk that sat beneath it. Just like the incomplete quilt, the trunk remains frozen in time. I inspected its contents when it first arrived, but only enough to fumble about. I never removed any items as the pain was just too much. It has remained untouched and covered ever since that day. I pulled the trunk to the center of the room and wiped it down with a rag and warm water. This brought out an earthy smell I remember encountering the day it arrived at our doorstep. I dried it off and cleaned the brass hardware a bit before pushing it back against the wall. As I went back to work on the quilt, it felt like the trunk was calling for me to open it. I was going to wait for you to return, but the beckoning grew louder. I pulled the trunk out again. I drew a deep breath and lifted the lid. I was enveloped with the smell of musty cloth, leather, and iron. I started to remove larger items and place them around the room on the floor. First, I removed Jimmy's neatly folded uniform and set it down. Next came out 2 caps, his canteen with its little cup, and his toiletry kit. All while doing this, I had my eye on a large stack of letters tied with twine. I untied the string and sorted through the letters. To my surprise, almost all of them were from me. The rest were from my sisters, and a few from names I didn't know. Those were mostly brief and impersonal, with little to take note of. This saddened me. I hope he had friends in the army, for he never seemed to have many from home. I can't even imagine fighting and dying while scared and alone in the trenches. I'm just going to have to trust what you've always said. The soldiers are brothers, forever bound in blood. After a good cry, I moved on to other items which included handbooks, maps, and his Bible with several pages turned down. This left 2 boxes. The first contained various souvenirs that told more of a story than all the other items combined. The first items I noticed were 3 medals. Maybe you can tell me what they were when you return. There were French bills and German coins, a few bullet shells, a pair of dice, and some loose cigarettes. There was also a blank postcard of the Eiffel Tower. I assume he planned to send it out, but never got the chance to. There were a handful of small stones that might have told a story or two. Unfortunately, those stories died with Jimmy. The last box was the heaviest, and by far the most intriguing. The first item that caught my attention was an exotic curved knife with a wood and brass handle. It's quite ornate, though much worn. There was also a small glass bottle that held something dark and dry. There is a tag attached with the word Psalm written upon it. There was a strange amulet, its face engraved with characters I could not place. Lastly, and the biggest surprise of them all, was a larger tin wrapped in canvas and tied up tightly with twine. I removed the twine and unwrapped the item. The lid was stuck, and it gave me quite a time with it, but I eventually managed to remove it by prying it open with a letter opener. I sat on the floor in shock at what I saw. James, you're not going to believe this, but it was a shrunken head, just like the ones you've read about in the papers, and like the one we saw at that traveling sideshow last year. Only this one isn't nearly as small as the one we saw. It sat somewhat deep in the tin, cradled by what looked like a nest of tiny vines or moss. It must be attached somehow to the tin because I couldn't remove it. I didn't want to damage it, so I left it inside. The most striking features are its eyebrows and head of hair. They were surprisingly thick and fair in color. I find it all very fascinating. It's very late, so I'm going to go to bed now. I just had to tell you about my day. I love and miss you, James. As always, Ella. Letter 5, Monday, May 29th, 1922. Dear James, I hope you're doing well. I skipped my breakfast to have another look at our not-so-shrunken head. It is ever so intriguing. It's not grotesque in the least. On the contrary, its expression is quite interesting. I thought it deserved a bit of reverence, so I cleaned its little home, polishing the tin until the gray film of age was gone. The box is quite presentable now and will look quite nice on the mantel. I took time with the interior. The nest was brittle and hard to clean, but I did the best I could, though I still could not loosen it. I was patient with the head. I dipped a rag in warm water and vinegar, then began to wipe it clean. Its skin was rough at first, mostly because it was so filthy. It was quite a task wiping and wringing again and again until most of the grunge was cleaned away. I took no small care to work the dirt from its eyebrows and hair. I then brushed its hair until it was downy soft. I dare say it appreciated the attention, as it seemed to have a contented look on its face. It took a lot out of me, but took my mind off of the loneliness. I suddenly realized I'd not had any supper. I'm too tired to bother, so I'm just going to turn in for the night. Good night, my love. Ella. Letter 6, Wednesday, May 31st, 1922. Dear James, forgive me for not writing yesterday. It was quite an eventful day. Yesterday morning, I woke to the sound of caterwauling. The strange, muffled cry sounded like a cat, or maybe a baby or the bleating of a lamb. Oddly, it seemed like it was coming from inside the house. I went downstairs, but heard it only once more. I looked outside and through the house, but at length gave up the search. I wanted to take a look at the not-so-shrunken head, so I retrieved the tin box and brought it into the kitchen, where the morning sun was brightest. I opened the lid, and to my amazement, its face wore a different expression. It was that of a grimace, like it was in pain, the poor thing. I fancied the sunlight too strong for him, so I closed the lid and set him back in the parlor. I stewed about this for hours, pacing the floor and wondering what I could do. I heated up some soup for supper, and it gave me a thought. I took a small bowl into the parlor and gave the little guy a spoonful. He drank it down, and the expression of pain seemed to ease a bit. I fetched a damp, cool face cloth and laid it upon his head. I stroked his hair and hummed a little song for him. This seemed to soothe him, but when I went to feed him some more soup, he winced, and the soup made a little mess. I cleaned him up and wiped his face with a face cloth. On a hunch, I ran my fingers over his lips, then inside his mouth to inspect his teeth. As I suspected, one of his teeth was very loose. I wiggled it back and forth and eventually broke free. His expression immediately relaxed. I extracted the tooth and saw it was quite bloody. It took me a moment to realize the blood was not his but my own, as the jagged tooth had nicked my finger. I wrapped my finger with the face cloth and tried to feed him the soup again, but he just wouldn't have it. This frustrated me, as I was just trying to please him. I tried tea and even some brandy, but he would have none of it. I asked him what he wanted, but he just lay there with a sad look on his face. I unwrapped the face cloth from my finger, and you should have seen his expression. He was just so excited. I could see what he wanted, so I placed my bleeding finger in his mouth, and he took to it like a hungry baby goat to a mother's teeth. He latched and took it in with rhythmic gulps. Between swallows, he seemed to smile with satisfaction, the corners of his mouth wet with my blood. He paused to breathe, and a dribble ran down his chin. I carried him to the rocking chair, where I might rock him and dab away the little trickles around his mouth. We were just so connected at that moment. I felt so warm and at ease I must have dozed as I jolted awake when he nibbled on my finger a little too hard. Though I was startled, I could barely wake up. I was completely worn to a frazzle. I sat him back on the mantel and fell back into the chair, sleeping until dawn. I'm still dead on my feet, but I just had to tell you all about my new friend. I can't wait for you to meet him. Ella. The Lazaretto Letters, a found collection of unmailed, handwritten letters from 1922. Produced and distributed by Iron Monkey. To share your reflections, lend your aid, or explore the mysteries of the Lazaretto Letters, visit Iron Monkey at enterthemonkey.com. Thank you for listening.